Alrighty, so recording has started and I would love to introduce Elaine. So as a two-time suicide survivor, the Real English Elaine left her 30-year corporate America experience to focus energy on her passion, helping improve mental wellness so that they can live the life they have been created for. You will hear the Real English Elaine say, "The last time I looked, my head and my body are connected." Success in mental wellness is to look at the whole person rather than just one area. For some people, like the Real English Elaine, medication is part of the solution. For most, it's more about lifestyle. Author of My Crazy Summer, a memoir, God, Medication, and Me, tells the story of her first suicide attempt in 2014. It describes the tension between faith and medication, together with the importance of being real. The Real English Elaine is a certified human potential coach focusing on the whole person: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. She is a member of the International Coaches Federation. As a certified mental health first aid instructor through the National Council of Mental Well-Being, the Real English Elaine delivers programs where participants attending receive a 3-year national certification. She is also a member of Mental Health America and NAMI Greater Orlando, where she is training to become a peer-to-peer teacher and is currently a speaker for In Our Own Voice, which she actually presented last week. As an independent contractor with Be Free Lake Inc., the Real English Elaine provides services in her local community. And with that, I'm going to launch a quick poll that's just going to ask if you live and work or work in Winter Park, and I will pass it over to Elaine.
Awesome. Thank you, Erin, as you get ready to launch that poll. Should I see that poll?
Yep, it'll just be a quick one that pops up.
Yeah, I see it.
We have a grant to increase programs in Winter Park, so we're always looking for Winter Park attendees.
Ah, I was curious as to why you asked that question.
That's it.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Alrighty, awesome. Looks like the majority of our attendees have participated. I will end polling and pass it right on over to you, Elaine.
Perfect. Thanks, Erin, and really appreciate NAMI Greater Orlando, NAMIGO. I love that. Let's go, NAMI, for giving me the opportunity to share my story and to really use this platform to increase awareness around mental wellness. It's also, you'll see from the title, my platform is From Awareness to Action, because it's okay having the knowledge, but it's not until you actually do something with it that we can actually make a difference. So I just want to start off with just taking a few moments. So it's 6:37 in US Eastern Time. I know some of you are not on Eastern Time. So let's just take a moment to take a deep breath before we get started. So we'll do some box breathing. And so for those of you who don't know what box breathing is, we're going to breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4, and then out for 4. So breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out for 4. And you can do that as many times as you wish, preferably open your eyes at some stage. And the photo credit here is Brago Photo. So unashamedly, he is my son-in-law. So that box breathing is actually something that is done by the Navy SEALs in the US as they go into action. So if they can do it, we can do it. So the topics for today are listed here. So I'm going to take you through my journey over the last several years, what's wrong in the mental health system, talk a bit about mental health first aid, which is a program that is delivered by the National Council of Mental Wellbeing, talk about the brain-gut connection, because it is about the whole body, share some resources, and then we'll do a Q&A at the end. As we go through the session, if you want to put your questions in the chat, and then Erin will be monitoring the chat for me, which is great. So onto my journey. So my logo is actually the cover of my first book, because I do plan on writing a second book. And you'll see that from left to right. So left, I was kind of like in a neutral state, pretty normal. And then I went into the deepest, darkest valley. And then I actually came out into a much better place. So my first episode, I attempted suicide in August of 2014. I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina at the time. I was working for PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, as a management consultant. And I personally put a lot of stress on myself. There were a lot of triggers that caused me to get to the place where I ended up. So I was stressing myself out at work, and it was me putting the stress on me, trying to be a control freak. My first dog that I had, he actually got killed by a car. I was thinking about moving house, and I had recently lost my mother. So a number of factors caused me to actually call my boss at 6 a.m. in the morning and tell him that I wanted to quit my job. And he said, it's not like you, like, go and take some time off. So I give kudos to PwC for the way that they actually cared for me throughout the whole episodes. So May 2014, I took time off. That 5 weeks ended up being 5 months. And in that time, as my book title is, there was a whole tension between God and medication. So as a Christian, I had lots of advice from people saying my faith wasn't strong enough. I needed to pray more. And so I also had people asking me to, like, telling me to go and see a psychiatrist, which I didn't want to do. And so I ended up going to see a psychiatrist, got medication. What I didn't know, that medication actually takes 6 to 8 weeks to kick in. And I just felt myself spiraling. So I basically, in the beginning of August, my husband went to soccer, and I decided that life wasn't worth living anymore. I felt like I was in the deepest, darkest pit. I was crying. I was walking around my living room thinking about, where do I sit so my husband, when he comes home, can find me dead? Like, what's the best position to look like dead? I was Googling, like, do Christians go to hell? And clearly Google said yes and no. And so I just thought I was going to go to hell. So I wrote a letter, and as I sat on a chair waiting to put the pills in my mouth, my husband actually texted me and said he was on his way home. So I put my pills away, I put my letter away, he came home, and I was basically thought, hey, I'm normal. Hey, honey, how are you? Like, let's go to dinner. I'm sure he would say that wasn't the case. And then when I woke up the next morning, he actually told me, or I told him, hey, this is what I was going to do yesterday, and I'm going to do it now. And I ran down the stairs and was looking for knives to kill myself. So he called my psychiatrist and my friend, and basically, as a result of that, iPad 3, would you mind muting? And so as a result of that, I ended up I went to a clinical, like, behavioral health ER, where I was basically taken straight in to see a doctor. I had all my clothes taken off me and put scrubs on. And the doctor was encouraging me to go to a hospital, which I didn't want to go to, but I ended up going. And so I was in a psychiatric unit for 10 days. And then I went to outpatient for 3 weeks. And then I went on a cruise. The cruise was actually planned for the year prior. And so the last day of my cruise, I actually felt like a light bulb had been switched on. And I said to my husband, I'm ready to go back to work. And I spoke to my psychologist and I spoke to my psychiatrist on the Tuesday and Wednesday after the cruise. And basically the next Monday, I was back in work. I just went back on to performing. And so we moved from North Carolina to Florida, and I continued to perform, putting a lot of pressure on myself. I heard God tell me mental health advocacy, and I was just like, no, that's not what I want to do. But I also knew that I didn't want to live in shame, and I wanted to be light. And so because of that, I would share my story as it came up. So basically in November of 2019, my contract of employment changed, and I went from full-time to contract with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I was very happy about that. I wasn't concerned about that. January, I got my contract, and then I actually put myself back into the spiral of performance-based. And what happened was in September of last year, I took an overdose. So again, there were a number of triggers that led to this overdose. In the September, I lost, well, I didn't lose, I sold my house, and we went into an apartment. Then we went into a rental property, which I'm still in. We leave in August. And I was so stressed out that I felt like I had to take an overdose. And that's what my second book's going to be about, because people do relapse. So basically, I went to the ER again, but it wasn't a behavioral health ER. It was just a regular ER. And I was in hospital for 3 days. And at the end of the 3 days, I thought I was going home. And my husband actually said, no, they had made a commitment to the psychiatrist that the psychiatrist would basically redact my Baker Act if I got help. So this time round, the help meant that I went into a residential facility for 2.5 months. I thought I was only going to be there 10 days because I was there 10 days the last time. So 2.5 months I was there, then I did outpatient, and it wasn't until January of this year that I got released. And I was like, I'm going back to corporate America because, you know, I'm the one that's the breadwinner, and I've basically worked in corporate America my entire life. But I kept hearing, no, mental health advocacy, mental wellness advocacy. And so it wasn't until April of this year that I made the decision to step out of corporate America and really commit 100% to mental health and mental wellness. And there is a difference between health and wellness, which I can talk a little bit about later, because it is about the whole body. And so really, it's only been since mid-April of this year, and I am so passionate about this topic. People will say to me, I'm so brave and courageous, and I really don't feel that way. I feel like I am doing what I was called to do. And I just want to share with everybody that it's okay not to be okay. And I really want to end the stigma around mental health, because a lot of people these days actually come out. And I want people to come out about mental health. You know, I am a suicide survivor, and I want people to be able to say that as much as they can say I'm a recovering alcoholic. So what did I learn over that 7-year period? Well, what I learned was, like, people attempt suicide not because they want to die, but just don't know how to live anymore. And that's really how I felt. I didn't know what next. That support systems are super important, even if it's 1 or 2 people. So my husband is on this Zoom call now, Kevin Sefton, and he was my rock and is my rock throughout this whole period. And throughout the 2 attempts and the 2 episodes, I only let 1 or 2 people into my life. And they actually kept on at me all the time. They were constantly in touch with me, asking me to go to lunch, going for walks, etc. So super important. Again, listen to the professionals and not your family and friends. It's really important to hear what the doctors, the psychologists, the psychiatrists have to say, and listen to them. I mentioned this earlier, medication takes 6 to 8 weeks to kick in. Now, I didn't know that. And actually, surprisingly, my psychiatrist didn't tell me that. So I was thinking, I'm taking my medication and it's like taking ibuprofen, you know, 4 hours overnight, I'll be well. Well, that's not the case. Self-care is important, and we'll touch on that in this session. And, you know, the last time that I looked, my head and my body are still connected. And it's really amazing how it's okay to talk about anything from the neck downwards, but to talk about from the neck upwards, it's not okay. And for me, so this is my story. My story is that God never leaves me nor forsakes me, even if I don't listen to him. And he's always there for me. So that's my journey. And as I say, I feel like I've been primed and prepared for this journey. And I'm super passionate and just want to like get on top of a mountain and just tell everybody it's okay. And so this actually was a picture taken just this year in March. So I had a yard sale and I slipped and fell. And what did I do? I didn't sit there and pray and ask, you know, send out a prayer chain to my friends. I literally went to the ER. So that's what I needed to do. So there's lots of things wrong at the moment when it comes to mental health. I don't even want to talk about the mental health system because that's a whole different topic and the policies and everything associated with it. So we're going to have a number of polling questions. And for those of you who are familiar with Zoom, which I think most people are these days after 2020, we're going to have some questions. Let's just test your current knowledge and see how much you already know. So we're ready? Yes, we're ready. Okay, right, Erin, let's go. Question 1 or 2 or 3, whatever it comes up first. Okay, at what age does half of all mental illnesses begin? 30, 40, 12, 16. What is the average delay? I think you just like type in like 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D. Is that right, Erin? I'm not quite sure how this works.
They should have like a pop-up that will allow them to choose which answer, but we can also make it more of a community thing. So we can definitely use the chat or even unmute ourselves to kind of share that.
Okay. So at what age does half of all mental illnesses begin?
Leela says 12.
Yep. Hold on one moment. Oh, I've just got.
Oh, Leela says it won't let you submit until the end. Got it.
Okay. Okay, let's go through them then, and then we'll see. So if you go to the end and hit submit, then we should see the answers. And so the second question, do you want to hit?
Why don't we have, you can read through the questions, and then when I end polling, we'll see what all of the responses were.
Awesome, thank you. So the first one is what age does half of all mental illnesses begin? The second is what is the average delay between symptom onset and treatment? 1 to 2 years, 3 to 5 years, 10 to 11 years, or 15 to 20 years? The next question is what percentage of people who die by suicide have a diagnosed mental health condition? 36%, 46, 56, 66. In the US, someone dies by suicide how often in terms of minutes? For every suicide, how many people attempt suicide in those minutes? How many weeks of feeling sad, anxious, or depressed and affecting your ability to love, laugh, live, and learn would you reach out to a trusted adult? How many people in the US die from a drug overdose? And what is the cost to the global economy of lost productivity due to depression and anxiety? So
it looks like we are getting some submissions in now.
Okay.
So we can give everyone just a little bit more time, and then I can read off what our answers or what our responses are, and then you can follow up with the right answers.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Erin.
Yeah. We'll give everyone just maybe 30, 45 more seconds. It looks like there's still some answers trickling in.
Cool.
Making sure
And Erin,
everyone's
no matter
still
what the right answer is, mine's the right answer, okay?
perfect. You know, I cannot see anybody's names on here, so.
Oh, good, because I should have known all of those and was very not happy that I did not know all of them.
Hey, it's okay. We have grace. Nobody's an expert, and it's easy for me when I look at the answers. So I have to say, since I've started doing a lot of work and research in this area since April, it's mind-blowing, sad. I'm angry. There's so many emotions when I see the results from these questions and all the other research that I have seen.
It's a lot. All right, so it looks like we have just a little over half done. So I'm going to read off our answers or what percentages we're looking at, and you can share the correct answer.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, so for question number 1, we have 2 people who answered 13, 2 people who answered 14, 3 people who answered 12, and 1 who answered 16.
Okay, the correct answer is 14. So half of all mental illnesses begin at the age of 14.
Perfect. So be on the lookout for those middle schoolers, early high school.
Exactly.
Number 2, what is the average delay between symptom onset and treatment? We have 4 people who said 1 to 2 years, 2 who said 3 to 5 years, 2 who said 10 to 11 years, and 0 that said 15 to 20 years.
Okay, yeah, the correct answer is actually 10 to 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
So can you imagine if when I broke my arm, if I had waited 10 to 11 years to get it seen to, I would have had to get my arm rebroken and all the pain and suffering. So there's so many people out there in pain and suffering in silence.
Mm-hmm. All right, next one. What percentage of people who die by suicide have a diagnosed mental health condition? 4 said 36%, 0 said 46%, 2 said 56%, and 2 said 66%.
So the correct answer is the one that nobody got. It's actually 46%. And if you look at the language that I used in that question, what percentage of people die by suicide? So we don't use the language commit suicide, because if you say commit is, you commit a crime, you commit a sin, it's something bad. So if there's one thing that you take away from today is when you hear somebody use the word they committed suicide, please correct them in a nice way and say, no, they didn't, they died by suicide.
And I think another interesting thing about this question is that it's diagnosed, right? It's not somebody who is showing signs or symptoms. So
correct.
I think that's a really interesting keyword.
Mm-hmm.
Not to derail us.
No, it's totally fine.
In the US, someone dies by suicide every blank minutes. 4 said 10.1, 1 said 11.6, 3 said 12.3, and 0 said 13.5.
So the answer is 12.3. So every 12.3 minutes, someone dies by suicide. So if you think about how much time you have been awake today, how many people have died by suicide?
For every suicide, how many people attempt suicide? 1 said 15, 5 said 25, so that's our overwhelmingly popular answer. 1 says 35 and 1 says 45.
And the correct answer is the popular vote of 25. Yeah. So when I look at these questions and answers and I think about my 2 suicide attempts, and I think about all the people that were doing the same thing as me, it's scary. Okay.
How many weeks of feeling sad, anxious, or depressed and affecting your ability to love, laugh, live, and learn should you reach out to a trusted adult? 7, which is pretty much everyone, said 2, 0 said 3, 1 said 4, and 0 said 5.
Yeah, the correct answer is actually 2. And just in full transparency, I actually was teaching middle schoolers and high schoolers. And I took this question from the poll that I did, or the quiz that I did with them. And that's why it says trusted adult on there.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just 2 weeks.
I can't hardly hear you.
You can hardly hear me. Okay, thanks, Phyllis. Is this better? Okay, cool, thank you. So yeah, it's 2 weeks. And it's 2 weeks with the ability, it's affecting your ability to love, laugh, live, and learn, which means that, you know, you might not be doing well in one of those areas, but it's really the culmination of all those areas. Okay, thanks, Erin. Next question.
How many people in the US die daily from a drug overdose? One person said 140, 4 people said 150, 1 said 160, and 2 said 170.
And the correct answer is 140. So 140 people die by a drug overdose each day.
And our final question is, what is the cost to the global economy of lost productivity due to depression and anxiety? Nobody said 50,000. 3 people said 1 million, 3 people said 1 billion, and 2 said 1 trillion.
Cool. And the answer is 1 trillion. So if you think about how much is being lost due to depression and anxiety, it's really, it's mind-blowing. And that's why, you know, one of the areas that I have a passion about is corporate America, because I was there for 30 years and I understand what it's like to be in those shoes of those people working in corporate America. And it's not just about having an EAP program. There's a lot more associated with having a good mental health, mental wellness culture. So one of my areas of passion as well. So good job. So I don't think anybody, not one person, or looking at the results, because I couldn't tell who it was, we didn't all know the answers. And I really didn't know the answers until I have been spending a lot more time in this area. I wanted to give a plug for NAMI and the resources, because this is, if you go to their website, you'll see those statistics in infographics, which are really powerful because there's a lot to a visual. And the one in the middle I really appreciate is, you know, you're not alone. 1 in 5 Americans actually have a mental illness. And you'll see there the demographics by gender and also by demographics as well. So it's really fascinating. And I know that we can actually get statistics that go by state and down to county level for some of the statistics, which is really fascinating to see. And then obviously, not obviously, but clearly the pandemic has also caused a huge increase in mental illness and mental conditions. And the statistics and research do actually tell us that we really won't see the cause or the effect of the pandemic until 18 months. So I know that there's a lot of money being made into communities in the US. I can only talk about the US. As a lot of money is being poured into the communities around mental health, mental wellness, which is a good thing. Pretty sad it took a pandemic, but there you go. At least better now than never. Okay, so how do we actually respond? And the response is being able to, so this is just one of the offerings and one of the ways in which we can respond to be able to identify, understand, and respond to signs of addictions and mental illness. And so it is mental health first aid. The National Council for Mental Wellbeing used to be called the National Council for Behavioral Health, and they recently changed the language, which I think is more inclusive because it's about the whole person. And this program, the Mental Health First Aid program, actually is a 3-year certificate. And so as I mentioned, I was trained last year as a mental health first aid instructor. And basically it does help to see the signs and symptoms of the responses for somebody suffering with mental health. It goes right from the beginning of, you know, somebody could just be having a bad day to all the way to a suicide or a crisis, whether it's to do with mental health or substance abuse. So it's basically like CPR for the mental side. CPR is for the physical. So this is what participants learn. And basically it's like CPR. You don't come away from the class or the program with a, you know, ability to be able to like diagnose and treat somebody. You're basically there to be able to provide resources, to be there as the first point of contact for the person so that you can point them to a professional. And so it does help to, like, provides a 5-step action plan. So if you remember, my platform is from awareness to action. You have to know, but then you actually have to do something with it. And this is the action plan. The action plan is called Algae. You'll see there's a koala bear there, and the koala bear is because Algae Mental Health First Aid actually started off in Australia, and now it's in 25 countries. And the Algae is, even though it shows as a linear response, it is actually iterative in the fact that, you know, you could be listening to somebody or encouraging them as much as you can be giving them reassurance and information. And so the training actually takes you through different scenarios. It follows like 3 people through them not feeling well to being in crises. And where can mental health first aid help? You'll see it really is at where there's early intervention required. So for me personally, in my 2 suicide attempts, it wouldn't have really helped me if my husband like sat down with me and said, "Are you feeling okay? I've noticed that you're not behaving as much as you should be." Yeah, I just needed to go and get help. But yeah, I mean, if you think about all the people that you come into contact with in your lives, and you might see, you know, hey, Judy, she normally she comes to church every week and I haven't seen her for a while. Or hey, there's Mark and he normally comes to all the meetings, but he's been shown up late or he hasn't been shown up at all. Like, what are the, is there some reason? So it's about noticing what the behavior is and then being able to have the conversation with the person. And so these statistics are from 2017. We actually have trained more than 2 million first aiders in the US, and there are more than 12,000 mental health first aid instructors. And if anybody's interested in being a mental health first aid instructor, just let me know and I'll point you to the right resources. And then how does the course, what does the course look like in terms of delivery? So we can do the training in person, which is a 8-hour program. We can do it virtually where there are 2 hours pre-work. And then there is a virtual class, which is basically like a Zoom training like we're doing now. And then the blended version is 2 hours pre-work. And then we come together in person to do more of the skills-based work. You'll see there on the bottom that the programs that I personally am accredited in and certified. So I can train adults, I can train fire and EMS, and I can train public safety. And the fire and EMS and public safety modules are basically the same as the adult module, except the scenarios and the case studies are specific to that audience. There is also mental health first aid for youth, but I'm not trained, certified to deliver that. And there's also mental health first aid for teens as well. And again, I'm not certified to do that. So what are people saying about mental health first aid? Oh.
I don't have any sound coming from this video.
Oh. You can't hear. Nobody can hear. Nobody can hear. Okay. Let me just try one more thing then. And if not, it's no big deal. I will, hold on, let me escape and go to this. And do one thing. Let's see if this works. Can you hear it?
I do not hear anything. You may be able to click the little arrow at share screen and you may be able to optimize your video. Sometimes that'll do it.
Hold on. Oh, hold on. I am, you know what? I'm going to skip the video. It's only 2 minutes and I can
No
share
problem.
that link. So
Yeah.
that's no big deal. Right, I am going to go back to my presentation, screen 2, and I'm going to share my presentation. You've got me. Hi, everyone. Let me go back there. Okay, perfect. So that was basically just people giving their testimony about mental health first aid. And, oh. Okay. Okay, right, moving quickly on. So that that section on mental health first aid is one of the responses with regards to what's going wrong with mental health. The other point that I'd like to talk about is the brain-gut connection. And oh, can you see brain-gut connection? What percentage?
I do not have your screen.
You do not have my screen. I have a big green line around my screen, Erin. Hold on.
Oh no.
It's okay. I love technology. It's not
Always fun. Keeps us on our toes, right?
absolutely.
Spice up everyone's evening. There you go.
Okay, so can you see the presentation?
Yep, looks great.
Okay, so I'm going to do slide. Okay, again, what are people saying? Right. Okay, right. Can you now see brain-gut connection?
I sure can.
Okay. Right. And can you see that question? What percentage of serotonin is in the brain?
I do. You have 2 screens up right now. So it looks like you're, there you go.
Awesome. So if you were able to read the question quick, what percentage of serotonin is in the brain? So I asked this question because a lot of people think that, you know, whenever we talk about serotonin, we're always talking about it in the brain. So what percentage is in the brain? If you could use the chat or just tell me, like, what do you think? What percentage of serotonin is in the brain?
That's tough. I'm going to go 25%.
25. Daniel, 65? No idea, Layla. Thanks for your honesty.
I'm going to go like 10% because I know the gut stimulates the brain to produce it.
Correct. Yeah. So surprisingly, your immune system and serotonin, more than 80% of it is in your gut. So I was totally shocked by that when I heard that for the first time. I was like, 80% is in my gut. And yeah, so this is actually a very medical figure. And it is like to do with the vagus nerve, which some of you may have heard of. And so basically it's the main nerve that runs from your brain to your gut. and it like does the transmission backwards and forwards. And you'll see that basically most of our immune system and our serotonin is in the gut. And so you really have to get gut health right in order to think right. So, you know, the phrase, we are what we eat. So this picture is my daughter. And so, yeah, we really are what we eat. And so it's really important that we pay attention to a lot of different factors, one of them being what we put inside our bodies, because that really does affect your mental wellness. And so it's all about taking care of ourselves. So I know that some of us, I know for me personally, I have not been on a plane for over a year. I know some of you have been on planes, and you know, one of the first things that the flight attendant will say to us as they go through the all their instructions is to put on your oxygen mask first, because if you can't look after yourself, then you're not able to look after others. And I work with a lot of mothers who basically like pour into everybody and don't leave any time for themselves. And it's not healthy, which means that they get stressed out and they can get depressed, because it does affect the mind and the brain. So mental health versus, you know, illness, or wellness versus illness. So for when I first started just a few months ago, I had this hashtag and it was like MHFA. So it was like the Real English Elaine Mental Health Awareness. And I changed it recently to show the Real English Elaine Mental Wellness Action, Mental Wellness Advocacy, Mental Wellness Awareness. And it's because it is about wellness. You know, we all have mental health, like we have physical health. However, you know, some of us may have mental illness conditions like me, and some of us may have physical illness conditions, and some of us may have both. So I personally, I am diagnosed with major depressive disorder, or I live with major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, which is the mental. And then I also live with hypothyroidism, and I live with prediabetes. Now, prediabetes, I do not take any medication for. I choose to look at my lifestyle versus taking medication. And it's really interesting how some people, they will basically, they will say, I stopped taking my antidepressants. And I'm like, why? Would you stop taking your diabetes medication? And again, it goes back to the whole stigma. And then I also look at the reverse of that. And there are some people that think medication is everything. And so they will take the diabetes medication, and then you'll see them, you know, at the Cheesecake Factory eating a ton of sugar. And then they have like issues with diabetes. So it's not one or the other, it's both. And clearly, I am not a doctor. I am just sharing with you what I've learned. And this is all my research personally. And I'm not going to tell you to do anything without speaking to your doctor. So I just want to make that statement. Before NAMI Greater Orlando say, Elaine, you can't speak to us ever again, because they all went out and did something. So when we look at like the whole person, so remember, as I said, everything is connected, and you just learned that the vagus nerve actually connects the brain and the gut. There are 8 dimensions according to SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, to whole person wellness. And I could talk like for an hour on each one of these 8 points, which I'm not going to, but I am going to talk to just a couple of them. And the first one is physical, which is, you know, the sub-dimensions of physical are nutrition, physical activity, sleep, etc. And so when it comes to nutrition, the one point that I will share with everybody, and I was fascinated when I learned it, is we all know that sugar is bad for us, right? We all know that we shouldn't eat a whole lot of sugar. However, what I didn't know was for female adults, we are only supposed to have 29 grams of added sugar a day, 29 grams of added sugar a day. And men are supposed to have like 45 grams of added sugar a day. Now, I was mortified when I learned that because I used to love Starbucks chai tea latte, which has like almost 50 grams of sugar. So I was getting more than a day's worth of sugar out of my Starbucks drink. So I choose not to have that on a daily basis, maybe once a year. So I think that's, you know, again, awareness is great, but you actually have to do something and take action, and that's all personal choice. And sleep, it's really important to have, you know, 8 hours sleep, 8 hours healthy sleep. And there's a lot of research around what does healthy sleep look like. And, you know, if you're not eating well, if you're not having exercise, even 15 minutes a day, if you're not sleeping properly, that all impacts your mental wellness. And that's when things can start going wrong with you mentally. And the other one I'd like to point out is social, which, you know, for us in 2020, it was really challenging, and a lot of mental conditions, as I said, are increasing, and we won't really get to see the impact of that until like 18 months time. And it's really important that we stay connected, that we're in community, that we take time to, you know, meet new people, that we have social time. It's really important. As humans, we're built to be connected and built to have community. And so that's really important. And so if you know, if you've got friends or you've got family members or neighbors who you're not seeing as often as you have done in the past, please take a moment to reach out to them and check in with them and make sure that everything's okay. As I say, you know, I could talk forever about each one of those, but I just wanted to like touch on those two that I thought were super important. And so just some fast facts for self-care. So on average, people only spend 15 minutes a day on health-related self-care. And that's for a lot of people, they don't even spend that. Self-care is proven to reduce stress and anxiety levels while increasing self-compassion. Again, if you don't love yourself first, then you can love other people, but it will be very stressful for you. And, you know, I could only wear my figurative mask for so long before I totally had burnout and broke down, which resulted in my 2 suicide attempts. And I hope that nobody gets to that place that I was at. And that's part of my mission, is to share my message and share this awareness so that people can actually take action. And then of people who took a depression screen at Mental Health America, MHA, it's Mental Health America screening.org, in 2020, 73% felt tired or said that they had very little energy at least half of the time or nearly every day. And again, a lot of it is to do with, you know, what are you actually putting inside your body? Like, how are you eating? How are you sleeping? How are you exercising? That all has an impact and on your mental and physical health as well. So I'm going to be wrapping up shortly, and I'm going to be taking time just to have a discussion and some Q&A. So resources, so these are resources in the USA. You've obviously got Emergency 911. There's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you don't already have those numbers in your cell phone or wherever you store your information, please take a moment to write it down. You could save somebody's life. There's the crisis text line, which is text 741 741, and then NAMI helpline as well. And you'll see that I've got 3 organizations that I support. I'm sure there's lots of other organizations out there. I am actually part of a local coalition called Be Free Lake, and we do a lot of work locally within the community, within the high schools, middle schools in particular. So we have NAMI, we have Mental Health America. I love them before stage 4. But, you know, I was speaking to someone recently, and we think about stage 4 being cancer, but we should be helping people like just when they're feeling blue, and we shouldn't have to wait for it to get to a crisis. And then obviously there's the National Council for Mental Wellbeing that I shared with you earlier. And I do want to end with just to share with you some of the people that I actually listen to and on the podcast. And so Dr. Caroline Leaf, she talks a lot about the mind and the brain connection and to do with the body. Dr. Axe and Dr. Mark Hyman, they are also very deep into the world around mental wellness and health. So I actually listen to them as well. If you ever want to, you know, check them out, I would recommend them. And then lastly, a call to action. So I would, you know, if there's anything from awareness to action, go to the Mental Health America's screening website or go to the screening tool and just take a checkup from the neck up and just see, you know, they have lots of different tests there, like for depression and PTSD and psychoses and all those things. And that is actually most of my content. So I want to take the opportunity to say thank you for listening and participating. And I really did want to leave time to be able to hear from you, what questions you have, if you want to discuss anything, because I know this, we do have time for that.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording so that none of our discussion will be published or put out anywhere. So I'm going to